On February 13, 1976, a single tractor rolled off an assembly line in Charles City, Iowa, serial number 266 782-705. The factory workers stood in silence. Some of them were crying because they knew what nobody outside that building knew yet. This was the last one, the last Oliver. The end of a green-painted empire that had once owned American farming. And the wildest part? Half a century later, farmers still refuse to let these tractors die. Some are still running today on soil they first cut into during World War II. Why? What was so special about a tractor that grown men cry when they see one start up? And who exactly killed Oliver? Because the answer isn't what you think. Stick with me, because this story has corporate raiders, a 70-day national obsession, a paint color contest that defined American agriculture, and a betrayal so brutal, it bankrupted the company that did it. Let's get into it. Quick thing before we start. If you've never heard of Oliver Tractors, you're about to understand why every old farmer over the age of 70 gets a faraway look in their eye when you mention the name. And if you have heard of them, buckle up. Because most of what's been told about how this company died is wrong. Picture this. It's April 1st, 1929, 6 months before the stock market collapses and takes the entire world economy down with it. And on this single day, April Fool's Day of all days, 4 of America's oldest, proudest, and most stubborn farm equipment companies do something nobody thought was possible. They merge, not 2 of them, not 3, 4. You had the Oliver Chilled Plow Company out of South Bend, Indiana, founded in 1855 by a Scottish immigrant named James Oliver, who'd figured out how to make a plow blade so hard it could slice through the sticky black soil of the Midwest like a knife through warm butter. 45 patents, plows shipped around the world. Then Hart-Parr, founded by 2 University of Wisconsin engineering students, Charles Hart and Charles Parr, who in 1896 wrote a senior thesis together about gasoline engines and then built the thing. Hart-Parr made the world's first commercially successful internal combustion farm tractor. They literally invented the word tractor. Their sales manager, a guy named W.H. Williams, thought traction engine was too clunky to fit in a newspaper ad, so he just made up a word, tractor. Every John Deere, every Kubota, every Fendt rolling around the planet today owes its name to a copywriter trying to save column inches. You had Nichols and Shepard, going back to 1848, who patented the vibrating grain separator that every threshing machine on earth eventually copied. And you had American Seeding Machine Company, also from 1848, who basically invented modern seed drills. 4 giants, 1 company, the Oliver Farm Equipment Company. And here's the curiosity gap I want you sitting with. By 1929, every single one of these companies was secretly dying. Their products were obsolete. Their factories were aging. The market for what they made had hit saturation point. Each one was a sinking ship. So what do 4 sinking ships do? They lash themselves together and try to build a new boat in the middle of a hurricane. It should have failed. It almost did. But what happened next changed American agriculture forever. Now, real quick, pause. Have you ever wondered why old tractors all look kind of the same? Square, boxy, exposed engines like a kid drew them? There's a reason. And the man about to break that mold was about to embarrass every car designer in Detroit. Watch this. 1935. The Great Depression is grinding America into dust. Farms are failing, banks are repossessing equipment. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is buying new tractors. This is the worst possible moment to launch anything. So of course, this is the exact moment Oliver decides to do something insane. They hire a guy named Oscar Egan, their chief tractor engineer. But here's the twist. Egan wasn't really a tractor guy. He was obsessed with cars, automobiles. He studied them, he sketched them. He understood that the average American farmer in 1935 looked at a Cadillac the same way you and I look at a Lamborghini today. It was the dream. And Egan thought, what if a tractor looked like that? Everybody told him he was crazy. Tractors are tools. They're not supposed to be pretty. They're supposed to be functional. Bolts everywhere, engines exposed. You don't put sheet metal over an engine. That's stupid. How do you fix it? Egan didn't care. He designed something that had never existed before, the Oliver Hart-Parr 70, launched in the fall of 1935. And it didn't just sell, it stunned people. This thing had a slanted, V-shaped grille like a luxury car. It had curved sheet metal panels that wrapped around the engine. It had a 6-cylinder engine, 6 cylinders, at a time when most tractors had 2 or 4. It ran on 70-octane gasoline. That's where the 70 in the name came from. And it had something almost nothing else on a farm had electric lights, electric starting. A driver could now finish the field after sundown. A father could plant a crop into the night to beat a rainstorm coming over the hills. Farmers said it changed their lives. Suddenly, the day didn't end when the sun did. People called it the prettiest tractor ever made. Some still do. But here's where the story gets weird. Because Oliver didn't just launch a new tractor. They did something nobody in agriculture had ever done before. They asked the farmers what color it should be. I'm not making this up. In 1937, Oliver brought their new restyled Model 70 to county fairs across the country. They painted 6 identical tractors in 6 different color schemes, and they let farmers vote. There was a chrome green body with red trim and ivory letters. There was a regatta red with aluminum. There was yellow with black trim, china gold with tangerine, ivory with gold. They even brought in a nationally known color specialist to pick the 6 finalists, which is the most 1937 sentence I've ever said out loud. Every farmer who voted got a leather pocket key case. People came from miles around. This was huge. This was the closest thing 1937 rural America had to a season of American Idol. And the winner? Chrome green body, red wheels, ivory lettering, the legendary Oliver Green. The color you can still see today, half a century after the company died, on tractors lovingly restored in barns from Iowa to Pennsylvania to Argentina. That color was literally chosen by a democratic vote of American farmers. But here's the part that blows my mind. After the votes were counted, Oliver ran a 70-day national advertising blitz. Get it? 70 days. For the 70, they took over magazines, newspapers, they whitewashed dealer windows so you couldn't see inside. They draped canvas over tractors on delivery trucks like they were Hollywood starlets being smuggled to a premiere. Farmers lost their minds. Lines formed at dealerships. People drove for hours just to see the new model unveiled. The Oliver 70 didn't just sell tractors. It taught the entire industry a lesson John Deere and International Harvester would scramble to learn for the next 5 years. A tractor wasn't just a tool anymore. It was an identity. It was something you were proud to park in front of your house. By 1939, 12 other manufacturers were copying Oliver's high-compression gasoline engine, the styled bodies, the enclosed hoods. Oliver had rewritten the rules of an entire industry, and they were just getting started. But, and you knew there was a but coming, there was a fatal weakness building inside Oliver. A weakness nobody talked about. A weakness that would one day be used to kill the company. And it had nothing to do with the tractors themselves. The 1940s and 1950s were Oliver's golden age. World War II ended. American farms exploded in productivity. The Marshall Plan was rebuilding Europe, and they needed food. American farmers were the new heroes, and Oliver was right there with them. In 1944, they bought Cletrac, the Cleveland Tractor Company, and instantly became a major player in crawler tractors, those tank tread machines you see clearing land. In 1948, they launched the Fleetline series, the Oliver 66, 77, and 88, available in gasoline or diesel, with independent power takeoff. Live hydraulics, 6-speed transmissions. The 88 alone was so good that some farmers reportedly waited 2 years on backorder to get one. They added the Super 55 in 1954, their first compact utility tractor, a category that today is half of John Deere's entire business. Oliver was ahead, way ahead. By the late 1950s, Oliver had something almost nobody else had. A transmission so advanced it would have buried the competition. Power booster, then hydropower, the ability to shift gears under load without stopping when every other tractor on the market still required you to come to a complete halt, push in a clutch, and grind into the next gear. We're talking about technology that John Deere wouldn't really match for another decade. There are people who still say, to this day, that if Oliver had been allowed to keep developing, if they'd been given just a few more years, they would have leapfrogged everybody. They were on the verge of releasing a transmission so advanced, the prototype reportedly looked like something from the 1980s, not the 1960s. So what happened? What happened is this. Back in the 1950s, Oliver did something kind. They had cash. A truck company in Cleveland, Ohio called White Motor Corporation was struggling. Oliver loaned them money to help them survive. And then, when times got tight in the late 1950s and Oliver wanted that money back, White Motor refused to pay. Read that again. Oliver helped White Motor. White Motor stiffed them, but it gets worse. Way, way worse. Because while Oliver was distracted, trying to chase down a debt they were owed, two brothers were quietly buying up Oliver's stock. Two men whose names you've probably never heard. And what they did next, on Halloween of 1960, destroyed everything Oliver had built. Let me explain. Their last name was Mailman. The Mailman brothers, corporate raiders, the kind of men who showed up in the 1950s and 1960s buying companies the way kids buy baseball cards. Not because they loved them, not because they wanted to build something, but because they wanted to flip them. They bought enough Oliver stock to take controlling interest. And then, on November 1st, 1960, just one day after Halloween, just 1 week before John F. Kennedy was elected president, they sold the entire Oliver Corporation to White Motor Corporation. The same White Motor Corporation that had stiffed Oliver on the loan, the same White Motor that had no business being in agriculture. Just like that. Oliver, the company that had been built by 4 generations of plow makers and engineers, the company that had survived the Great Depression, that had invented the modern-styled tractor, that had pioneered live hydraulics and power shift transmissions, was now a subsidiary of a truck company, run by people who didn't farm, didn't understand farming, didn't care. White Motor wasn't done. They went on a buying spree. In 1962, they grabbed Cockshut, the Canadian tractor company. In 1963, they bought Minneapolis-Moline, another iconic American brand. By 1965, they shut down crawler tractor production at Charles City. Cletrac was gone, just like that. Then they started blending the brands together. Oliver Tractors and Minneapolis-Moline Tractors became basically the same machines under different paint. You'd buy a Cockshut, and it would be a red-painted Oliver with a different badge. You'd buy a Minneapolis-Moline, and it would have Oliver parts inside. The soul of each brand, the engineering culture, the dealer networks, the loyal farmer base, all of it was being slowly poured into one big anonymous pot. In 1969, the final dagger. White Motor consolidated everything under one banner, White Farm Equipment. The legendary Oliver Green was being phased out. The model numbers were changing, the dealer signs were coming down, but the tractors themselves? Oh, the tractors kept rolling out of Charles City. Until February 13th, 1976, a green Oliver 2255, serial number 266-782-705, built by men who knew it was the last one they'd ever build. Driven off the line, and then silence. The Oliver name was over. But here's the part that nobody tells you. The part that twists the knife. Remember White Motor Corporation? The truck company that swallowed Oliver? In 1980, just 4 years after killing the Oliver brand, White Motor Corporation went bankrupt. Filed Chapter 11, collapsed. Their farm division got sold off to a Texas company called TC. Their truck division got sold to Volvo. Everything they'd built, gone. There's a quote from an old forum I came across while researching this. An old-timer who worked there summed it up perfectly. He said, the truck division burned off all the equity of the ag division, and that was the end of it all. That's it. That's what happened. White Motor used Oliver as a cash cow to prop up its failing truck business. They drained the company that built tractors farmers loved to subsidize the company that built trucks no one was buying. And when the truck business finally died, it dragged the farm business down with it. Charles City, Iowa. The factory town where Hart-Parr built tractor number 1 in 1901, where 3,000 workers had once built the green machines that fed America, limped on. By the time the plant closed for good, the workforce was down to just over 400 people. A graveyard of a town that had once been the proud beating heart of American tractor manufacturing. The patents? Eventually swallowed up by AGCO. The dealer network? Scattered. The brand? Gone from showrooms forever. So that should be the end of the story, right? Tragic, bittersweet, roll credits. Except, it isn't the end. Not even close. Here's what's wild. If Oliver died in 1976, somebody forgot to tell the farmers. Drive through rural America today. Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. you will see Oliver tractors, not in museums, in fields, still working, still plowing, still cutting hay. Some of them are 70, 80, 90 years old, running every single day, doing real work on real farms. There's a guy in British Columbia I read about, Al Hume, who owns a 1953 Oliver Standard 66. His family bought it new from a dealer in Vancouver. That tractor has worked the same plot of land for over 65 years. In 2001, when local fruit growers organized a protest parade to pressure the provincial government for crop subsidies, guess what tractor he drove down Main Street? The Oliver. Of course it was the Oliver. There's a national collectors club, the Hart-Parr Oliver Collectors Association. They have shows where hundreds of these green and red beauties roll in on trailers from all over the continent. Grown men, weathered men, men who can fix anything that runs on diesel, they spend their weekends, their savings, their retirements, restoring these machines to factory condition. They pass them down to their kids, to their grandkids. Why? Because Oliver tractors were built by people who loved what they were building. You can feel it when you drive one. The seat is positioned right, the controls fall under your hand the way they should, the 6-cylinder engines purr smooth where competitors clattered, the hydraulics shift like an automatic transmission. They were ahead of their time, and they still feel that way today. But there's something deeper than engineering. Oliver tractors represent something Americans lost. An era when a company could spend a year asking farmers what color they wanted. When engineers were obsessed with making a tool beautiful, not just functional. When a workforce of 3,000 people in a small Iowa town could change the world. When you bought a tractor and it lasted 3 generations. When a corporation didn't strip mine the things it bought. When a brand actually meant something. That's what the green Oliver represents. And that's why farmers, even today, decades after the last one rolled off that assembly line, refuse to quit them. So here's where we land. The Oliver Farm Equipment Company was killed by greed, not by competition, not by John Deere, not by changing markets. Those forces were there, sure, but Oliver could have survived them. They had the technology, they had the dealer network, they had the brand loyalty, they had farmers who would have stuck with them through anything. What killed Oliver was a truck company that bought them as a financial maneuver, then bled them dry to prop up a failing business that in the end failed anyway. The Oliver story is what happens when the people running a company stop being people who use the product and start being people who just count the product. And yet, and this is what's beautiful, they couldn't quite finish the job. The corporate hitmen got the company, they got the factory, they got the brand, but they could not, no matter how hard they tried, take the tractors back from the farmers who already owned them. And those tractors are still running, still being restored, still being loved. Half a century later, the Mailman brothers are gone, White Motor is gone, the boardrooms where the deals got signed are gone, but out in some field in Iowa right now, as I'm talking to you, a green tractor with red wheels is firing up its 1947 engine, and it sounds exactly like it did the day it left Charles City. That's the only kind of immortality a company can ever really earn. The tractor outlasted the men who killed it. If this story hit you, if you've got an Oliver in your family, or your grandfather did, or you just love when forgotten history gets told properly, drop the brand and model down in the comments. I want to know. There's a whole community of people who still keep these machines alive, and they deserve to find each other. And if you want more stories like this one, companies that should have lived, brands that died too soon, the engineering legends nobody talks about anymore, you know what to do. Subscribe, stick around. The next one might just be about the tractor that nearly buried John Deere, and what happened to its inventor on the day it almost did. I'll see you in the next one.